The year is 2017, and I am on my 12th year of being an executive in senior living. I'm sitting behind my big cherry desk, and the phone on my desk rings, and I pick it up. And the other voice on the other line says, "Hi, my name is Susan. My mom recently fell at home. She's been in rehab. I just found out today that she's ready to be discharged within 24 hours. Do you all take United Healthcare?" I knew just from that question alone that Susan really didn't know what she was potentially looking at. Because not only did I have to tell her as assisted living, we were private pay, but we could be up to or exceed $10,000 a month paying privately out of her mom's pocket. So this told me, like many other phone calls we had received weekly while I worked in senior living, how unprepared people were when it came to dealing with aging concerns or things that came up. And when I tell this story, most people feel bad for Susan, the adult daughter who had to drop everything and try to figure out what was going on with mom and how to get her into the best situation. But I actually felt bad for her mother, Margaret. Margaret, in this moment in time, had lost all her options, all of her choices, and her independence. And maybe with a little preparation beforehand, we could have avoided some of this, or the education piece would have already been there. So Susan wasn't calling out around in a frantic way, trying to help her mom get to a safe situation. And that's what I have dedicated myself now to with Openly Aging, is I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to plan ahead and be proactive about aging. So today in the Openly Aging Collective, I'm really excited to talk with you about how to take control of your aging journey. This presentation is based on my book, Openly Aging, The 4 Pillars to Keep Control of Your Aging Journey. So let's begin. My name is Allison O'Shea, and I am the founder of Openly Aging. I did spend 20 years as an executive in senior living, and that's how I came to start the collective. So we're going to talk today about the elephant in the room. Aging is something we cannot avoid. All of us are aging. We have this whole goal of youthfulness in our society, which is a little ridiculous to me because I am older now than I was when I started this presentation 2 minutes ago. So let's talk about some facts. So in 2023, 56 million people were over the age of 65. By 2060, 95 million people will be 65 and older. In 1900, there was only 100,000 Americans who were over the age of 85. By 2050, there will be 19 million people over the age of 85. 85 plus is the fastest growing age group right now. So the likelihood of us living to be 85 and older is the highest it's ever been. But if you are between the ages of 85 and 89, 60% of us are going to need some sort of support due to functional limitations. And this isn't those scary words, toileting, showering. This is if you're not feeling well, who can go to the pharmacy for you? If doctor's appointments start to feel overwhelming, who are those people that you can call on to help you in those times of need? And that's why this conversation we're having today is really important. There is a framework we can give ourselves or follow. So if we get to that stage of life where we do need a little bit of support, we have put ourselves in a place of where we can help avoid crisis and stay independent. So in order to take ownership of our aging journey, we do have to move past some outdated ways of thinking. We have to get out of denial and become self-aware. Our situation is our situation. Our finances are what they are. Our health is what it is. Who we have around us. We have to be able to look around and be very self-aware of our specific situation. We have to stop being so fearful about aging and use the situation and the journey we're in to feel empowered. And that's through education and through talking about aging and making a strategy. And we always hear how seniors are vulnerable consumers. But what are we doing as aging individuals to not be vulnerable consumers? We have to educate ourselves on what is out there. What are the services? How much do they cost? And we have to stop being reactive to aging issues and take a more proactive approach. That's how we keep our independence, and that's how we avoid crisis. Now, there are some disclaimers when we talk about aging, and the first one being aging is universal, but your journey is 100% unique to you. No one will have the same exact situation as you. So when we talk about our pillars, they are very unique to you. Your plan should fit your finances and not the other way around. People often do not understand how much services cost, and so they have these plans to, I'll just stay home. And then all of a sudden they find out when they're in the middle of a crisis that they can't afford to stay home. Home care is way more expensive than moving into a community. So understanding how your finances relate to aging is important. There is no right or wrong answer. Your journey is your journey. And if you're doing it strategically and with education and intention in mind, you can do it how you want. And just because your neighbor had a bad experience with a certain service in the aging industry doesn't mean you will. And so making sure that you understand what your goals are and there's no right or wrong answer. This process can be emotional. We go through a lot in our lifetime. And as we reach our older years, it can be hard to acknowledge the fact that we are getting older. So allow yourself to have those emotions as they come up, but don't let them paralyze you and not put a strategy in place for your future. So here are the 4 pillars on how to keep control of your aging journey. And how I created these 4 pillars is every time I saw a crisis in senior living, or even after leaving senior living, the crisis fell into one of these pillars. Something was broken, something wasn't solid, something was cracked. And so if we are intentional and thoughtful about these pillars, we have a better opportunity of keeping our independence and staying out of crisis. So breaking them down, our first one is our support system. And as a reminder, between the ages of 85 and 89, almost 60% of us are going to need some sort of support due to functional limitations. And this is where your support system comes in. So one of my first questions to people is, what does your current support system look like now? Do you have a strong support system? Do you not have a strong support system? If you look around in your current support system, is all your same age? That might be something to be thoughtful about and to be intentional on. Wow, my support system eventually will also need a support system. So how do we structure it so you are fully protected? Am I the support system for someone else? If you're looking around at your group of friends, do you have somebody that you're taking to doctor's appointments, or you're their first call? Because it can go both ways, making sure you understand who you are a support system for. And realistically, can you be that support system long term? Do I need to get educated on a professional support system? If I can't identify an aging support system, if I look around and maybe my adult children don't live nearby, or the adult children I do have are not in a position to be my support system, or I never had children, and if we can't find nieces and nephews. So first, we have to be able to identify our support system. And if we are going to struggle with that, then we need to get educated on what a professional support system looks like. Professional support systems, 2 of the biggest words I use, and I've put them in my book, is geriatric care manager or patient advocate. So geriatric care managers are normally social workers or nurses, and they basically help with, maybe coming to visit you once a month or once a quarter just to check in and see how you're doing with aging issues. If you start needing support, they're there to kind of help coordinate support, but also make sure that the type of support you're getting you can afford, or that you understand what kind of support you need. Patient advocates, these are people that are great if you have a lot of medical concerns and you're in and out of the hospital or have a lot of doctor's appointments. Having a nurse, there's primarily nurses, to just help oversee your medical information can be helpful for some people. But here's the catch that I found in 20 years. You should know that a professional support system potentially is in your future way before you even need them. Because if you look around and you're not going to be able to identify a support system, this is where you need to start educating yourself on. How much do they cost? Can you afford a professional support system? And then also, if you start realizing, wow, I do think I might need a professional support system one day if I start declining, all of a sudden, you're going to hear the term geriatric care manager. You're going to hear the word patient advocate, because once you know that that's a potential, it just opens up your eyes to hearing the terminology and getting yourself educated on what a professional support system is. Our next pillar is social connection. The Surgeon General in 2022 put out a memo that said that being socially isolated is like an epidemic among people over the age of 70. They are finding through many, many studies that social connection can give more benefit and keep people healthier longer than just following a good diet and exercising. So social connection needs to be a priority as we're strategizing for our future. So one of the first questions I ask people is, what does your social circle look like now? Are you somebody that has a ton of friends in all different areas? Are you somebody who has a small group of friends? Are you somebody who can't identify a social circle? These are really important questions to start our talking. What brings me joy? What do I find passion for at this phase of my life? Because we can create a social connection strategy around that. Is it volunteering? Is it, being around children? So kind of really thinking about what is it that I have passion for in this phase of my life helps us with this part of your pillars. Am I introverted or extroverted? And I don't want to hear I'm an introverted extrovert because it is on a spectrum and you can definitely fall more in the middle. But knowing how you receive energy, is it from others or after you're around others? Do you like to take some time alone to recharge? So understanding, are you introverted or extroverted, is important. And because so many people end up failing or not doing well and losing independence as they get older because they were extroverts who all of a sudden are home alone all day by themselves. And that's not feeding part of their soul and what they need. And so that naturally makes people just start to decline. What are your 3 roles, or your 3 R's, excuse me? So what were your roles in life? If you were a career person, what type of career did you have? Were you in sales or were you an accountant? Those sometimes, have different personalities attracted to both of those. Were you somebody who was always volunteering at your children's school? So what kind of roles did you have in life that fulfilled you? Relationships. Are you somebody, again, that has a lot of friends, or do you have a small, intimate group? Did you come from a very large family? Did you come from a very small family? What are those relationships? Do you have good relationships with your children? Do you not? Do you have nieces and nephews that are like children to you? So knowing those relationships. And recreation. We recreate in two ways, essentially. You're either a social recreator or a purposeful recreator. So if you're a social recreator, you love a party, you love happy hours or going into a group and being able to chit chat, small talk. If you're a purposeful recreator, you're somebody who likes to have a job and who wants a purpose within their recreation. So a purposeful recreator is somebody who may join a group, but they always end up in a leadership role, president of the women's club. Or if there's one of your friends who are sick, you're the one that's organizing the meal train. So knowing how you recreate also helps with creating your social connection strategy. And last but not least, what happens when you're not driving anymore? If you stop driving tomorrow, what does your social connection look like? Does it shrink and you are reliant on other people to get you to your social connection? Are you starting to feel comfortable with Uber or relying on transportation? Or could you see yourself being comfortable in that arena if need be? So understanding that as soon as driving becomes more of an issue or something you're not as comfortable with, what does that look like for your social connection? Our third pillar is supportive services. And I describe this pillar as any service where money is exchanged. And it could be you paying money or your insurance paying money. One of the biggest examples I use for people to get them to understand what this pillar is about is, do you know the difference between home health and home care? So one is covered by insurance and one is private pay. And most people don't understand the difference. And so for this talk, home health is covered by insurance, and that is therapies, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech, sometimes nurse support. Home health comes into play maybe after you've had surgery. Home care is private pay, and that is like certified nursing assistants or companion care coming into your home to help you with tasks. But that's why knowing the difference is so important. One is covered by insurance and one can be around $30 an hour. So when we talk about supportive services, one of the first things we need to identify is, what are our concerns and fears about needing support from others? Is it the vulnerability of it? Is it the safety of it? Is it just the total fear of declining and needing people to come in? Because I want us to change the way we view people supporting us as not, oh my gosh, I'm declining, so I need support. More of, wow, I'm really committed to staying independent, and this is an area that I'm starting to notice I'm not as good at anymore, or I'm really struggling with. And so what kind of service can I bring in to help me so I can keep my independence? Based on your overall strategy, your big picture strategy, we can identify what potential supportive services you may need in the future. If you say, I want to stay home for as long as possible, then we can identify, hey, these are the supportive services that may come into your life based on that choice. Let's educate ourselves on them. Let's talk about how much they cost, how the business models work. Same thing if moving to a community type living might be something you would consider, you should understand all the different options. So getting an education on the potential supportive services that may come into your life is very important, especially to do it when you're independent and not in a crisis. Do I know how my finances relate to aging? We can say all day long we want to stay home with care, but 24-hour care can be $20,000 a month. And if your finances cannot support that, then you need to realize that there is a potential one day that you might not be able to stay home. But let's work on how we get you to stay home as long as possible. But understanding how much things cost and how the business models work is really important to create a strategy that is actually effective. We need to identify triggers when supportive services may be needed. So in my 20 years, one of the biggest things I saw was people thinking they were fine, but everyone else around them was starting to really stress out because they could see that things weren't necessarily fine, but the aging person was really reluctant to admit that things weren't fine or to pay for services. So identifying triggers allows you, as somebody who's aging, along with your family, to have very black and white causes for decisions to be made. For example, one of the biggest ones is if you can't drive. If all of a sudden you do not feel safe driving or somebody tells you you shouldn't be driving anymore, what does that look like for you? And what would that trigger in your life to make sure that you still are able to stay independent and in control? For some people, it's a financial threshold. I can stay home and pay for care until it's, $8,000 a month. And then after that, I know I need to move into a level of care potentially because it will be cheaper in the long run. For sometimes the triggers can be an adult daughter saying, Mom, I can do 3 doctor's appointments a month. But on that, if it gets to be more than 3, we have to hire somebody to help us. So being able to talk through what triggers could potentially come is very important, and it helps everyone stay in control and on the same page. And does my identified support system know what your strategy is? They will love to hear, hey, my goal is to stay home and here's all the things I've thought about to make sure I can do it. But if this, and this happen, I know that I have to make other arrangements and here's what I've already thought about. So communicating our plan and our strategy to our support system is important. And this is just a list of some potential supportive services that are common ones and some people don't think about but can make a really big difference in their lives. So our 4th pillar is our home pillar. And sorry, let me go back. And how I look at our home pillar is you have really 2 options: to either stay in your current situation or identify that long-term our situation isn't necessarily going to work. So let's talk about what that next step could look at. We do have a sense of pride in being able to stay home, which I don't think is wrong. But if the home that you're trying to stay in is the home that you've been in for 50 years, you raised your kids, when you bought it, you weren't really thinking about this phase of your life. So being realistic about staying home, is that a home that makes sense to age in? Or will it actually debilitate you and make you lose your independence and control because it's not a place that's going to age well with you and people are going to feel uncomfortable with you being there long term? So we talk about this in 2 ways. Like I said, we can stay, which once there's no right or wrong answer, so it's all up to you. But here would be the questions I would have somebody ask. How big is the home you want to stay in? Is it, 3,000 square feet and you're only using 1,000 of that? That's something to be considered. How much does it cost to upkeep? So many people say, well, I don't have a mortgage, so why would I move? But if we add in all the things you have to pay just to upkeep this home, sometimes it offsets the fact that you don't have a mortgage. So how old is the home? Are you eventually going to have to get a new AC unit, a new roof? So really looking at how much it costs to upkeep and how old and what are the things that are going to be coming up, they're going to cost you a lot of money, really need to play into our decision on whether this place is going to age with us. What happens if I have a decline in abilities? Am I able to get in and out of this house? Am I able to go up the stairs? And what happens again if I can't drive? If all of a sudden my world is so small and I am stuck at home and reliant on my adult children or a few friends from church to get me places, is that really the best place to age? And This conversation is not about making a decision tomorrow. This is about, as I said at the beginning, becoming self-aware of our situation so we can start strategizing for the future. Your home may work for you now, and that's great. But identifying the triggers and realizing that if certain things start occurring in our life, this home may not fit what I want. And then you should already have an idea of what that next phase will look like. So let's say you are, hey, I'm willing to consider downsizing. Let's talk about that. We go back to, where is that identified support system? Is it your adult daughter? Are they local? Great. But if they're not local, where do they live? Will I move to where they are? And if I will move to where they are one day, do I do it when I'm independent, or do I identify a trigger and do it when I'm starting to need a little bit more support? So making sure we're thinking about that. Or, no, I'm never going to move to Michigan. I don't want to be there for the cold. That's fine. So how do we set ourselves up in this location we're choosing to be in to have the best structure and the best support? That might be a professional support system, like we talked about before, who can communicate back with your daughter if something happens, what a gift you could give your adult daughter. Or maybe it is a community type living, so you have that structured support system there as part of the community. Do you want built-in social engagement in this next phase of your life? Or are you fine with your social engagement and you could downsize to a condo, a townhouse, whatever? I will when I am ready. I hear this from so many people, especially those, if anyone's listening, who have a waitlist deposit at a continuing care retirement community. You put this waitlist down and you say, okay, I'll move when I'm ready. We have to identify, what does that mean? What does ready mean to you? Because that is a false sense of security if you have this waitlist deposit down. Because if you're going to wait until you need support, you've missed the opportunity to move into a CCRC, a continuing care retirement community. If you're fine with, I'll move from my home when I need support, then there's no reason to put a waitlist deposit down at a continuing care retirement community. So identifying what that means, I will when I'm ready. And it's also being able to say, I will never move into this type of care, even though all my friends, or this type of community, even though all my friends are planning on doing it. That's also okay. So here are just some examples of home outside of maybe the house you raised your kids in. 55 plus communities are great. The common ones are Del Webb. There's a lot of apartments kind of sprouting up all over that are 55 plus. Continuing care retirement communities, we talked about that. Those are those large buy-in communities. There's a few different models of those as well. Independent living, those are more apartment type, but they have a lot more amenities than a 55 plus. And most of the time they're rental, so you pay by the month. Co-housing is becoming more and more popular, where people are moving in together into a single family home. They can help support each other, and it also helps with the cost of services or the cost of upkeeping a home. And then, of course, choosing to stay where you're at, which is also okay, as long as you're doing it with intention and in education, so you know what areas you may need support in as you get older. So as we finish talking about the elephant in the room, aging, I want everyone to really, my point of my book and my presentation and this whole openly aging movement is I spent so many years watching people feel shamed as they age. They wouldn't tell their adult children when they fell. If they were having cognitive concerns, maybe they realized that their memory wasn't that great. They weren't saying anything to anyone. Maybe they were feeling off balance or feeling a little shaky and they just avoided it, or really just didn't tell people. And that comes from an energy of embarrassment. And I really want to have openly aging be a catalyst for, we can't stop aging. And there's some really, excuse my language, crappy things that can happen as we age. We can get diagnosed with really annoying but also devastating diagnoses. But if we act like we are not aging, and if we act like we aren't getting diagnosed with some of these things, our aging journey, we lose control and we become a burden, and morale is so bad. If anything, I want people to take from this that, whatever aging issue comes your way, I want you to embrace it with an energy of, all right, this kind of stinks, but you know what? I'm going to get every service I can to keep myself as independent for as long as possible. I want to do as many interventions to help promote my independence, because that's how we age well. It's when we hide it and we put our head in the sand that we lose control and we progress way quicker into our aging journey. So I want people to use aging is not something to fear, but an opportunity to take control, live intentionally, and embrace the strength and wisdom that come with every chapter. So thank you so much for being part of the Openly Aging Collective. I hope we continue to bring you more information, and have a great day. Bye.